Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to the Global Dawah Movement Show, the GDM show. Today's show is a unique show because we're addressing online atheism. Why are we doing this? It's because there are so many videos, so many misrepresentations of our own arguments and other theistic arguments online, and we felt that we should basically pick one YouTube channel, for example, and expose it for what it is.
So wait a second, can I just see if I got this correct? According to you, there are channels out there by atheists that misrepresent your arguments and your views, as well as those of other theists. Therefore, you have chosen a channel, i.e. mine, which by the way is a channel where I've always shown 100% of the video I am responding to, i.e. setting out to dismantle it, to ensure that I do not do this. You set out to make an example of me how to these people. I mean, I may misunderstand your points, I may miss things, but how can I misrepresent you when I never state what you believe or argue in any way, but rather incorporate the entirety of your videos into my own, displaying what you yourselves have said yourselves? I just don't get it. The only one who could actually misrepresent you is yourself, and that would not be my fault. I don't think you planned this out very well.
That it's basically feigning intellectual discourse, and it's slandering others. And just because it has references and some kind of argumentation, it doesn't mean it's true. In actual fact, it's false and it's full of misrepresentations. Yes, we can't address everything because we don't have the time, and we hope our work will speak for itself. But we really want this show, or the intention behind this show, is for you to understand that, look, here's an example. There's some person faking intellectual mannerisms and having a so-called argument or an objection to our arguments, and he sounds clever, but yet he's been exposed to be false.
Right, well, here is the problem with your claim of slander. I direct my content at you. I send each video to you without failure. I give you a chance to respond, to point out the ways in which I have failed to understand you, or possibly to apologise for the mistakes you have made. For it to be slander, or libel in the case of published media, you must display that I had reason to doubt the validity of my own claims about you. If my evidence points towards the inability of your own arguments, as well as your continued deception even after people have shown you the factual nature of what you have stated being wrong, and you still continue to do so, even if my understanding is flawed, that does not mean it is libel. Hence, I always ensure that I send my video responses to everyone I make one towards. For you, I not only send it to you on YouTube, but I used to try out on Facebook, no response, so then I began sending it to you directly on Twitter. If you then showed how I was actually wrong, I would retract the claims made, publish a public apology, and then I would have no reason to continue spreading what had then been proven to be false, or without reasonable basis. If I did, you could call me a liar, like I am calling you out for doing this with the information on various social scientists, as well as your claims that you've looked into a field, yet you have absolutely no clue on that field. You know, that's what I'd have to do. I would have to stop there, halt it, or then it would be slander or libel. It's not merely libel because it hurts your feelings. Now, I note this because both times you have responded to me, you have failed to ensure that I was aware of your content. See, I offer you the opportunity to correct me and then to get a public apology from me. You don't offer me that. You don't have the respect to give me that. I have made note of this fact repeatedly the first time when you made a response to me on the London Dawah movement, which, by the way, links back to my video as displayed in my response to that one, so I do know it was a response to me, and now with this video. As for this quasi-intellectualism, from what I have seen displayed by you in the past, I would suggest holding your tongue because throwing stones in a glass house is far from intellectual.
And this is what we want from the show. Basically, it's a lamb to the slaughter from that perspective. We're exposing a particular atheist channel to really highlight the point that you don't take them seriously. You only take people seriously if they ask and they intend to learn. You only take people seriously if they don't slander. You only take people seriously if they want to have dialogue. Because this YouTube channel and this person in particular that we're going to be talking about actually has not contacted myself privately or personally via email or Facebook or other social media. And I'm quite accessible and hopefully quite approachable. So if someone wanted clarification on my premises or assumptions, then all that person had to do was ask.
Oh really, Hamza? Then could you possibly explain why I have contacted you repeatedly over Twitter, and before you pretend that you did not receive my notifications or it got lost, as that does happen from time to time, why you then followed me back? I did not follow you. I posted a comment, you followed me back. This was over 2 months ago, but before then I've always posted my video responses on the videos I've responded to on YouTube via the comments. I've never hidden them from you, but rather actively brought them to your attention. I even attempted to do this on Facebook. I also took this to the degree, in fact, that I attended one of your public talks and did just that. I noted my critiques to your videos, so you really have no excuse. If you want to talk about who is defaming whose character, why don't we consider what you are actively lying about here? YouTube is my playing field, and every time I've responded, I've always linked there. That's because that's the sensible thing to do, yet I've also attempted on Facebook, I've attempted on Twitter, nothing. Now, this is my common practice. Yet, it just annoys me, I've gone on Twitter, I've contacted the London Dawah movement on Facebook, last year, before you visited my university. I remember this particularly because I asked you in person how you felt about winning the Dim Bulb of the Week competition hosted by Coffee with Claire. What more could I have really done? I approached you personally on Twitter and the organisation on YouTube and Facebook, and in person in real life. I've been trying to get your attention for a while, so please don't begin to actively lie, as even if you did not know about the YouTube or Facebook aspect, you have no excuse on the Twitter aspect or the person aspect. I just don't understand this. So now you've just wasted 2 minutes of your video actively misrepresenting me. And yes, I know you're talking about general atheists in this as well, but you are using me as an example. You stated specifically at the start, and if you did not want to lead into this, you should have clarified. I'm taking to the context the entire lead into this point. Using me as an example, apparently I'm not contacting you, when in reality I am.
Just like the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, upon whom be peace, said, the cure to ignorance is to ask and learn. If you don't ask and learn, you're going to stay in a state of ignorance. So, I've written some notes here, so I do apologize that if this show doesn't have the same flow, but please bear with me. Now, brothers and sisters and friends, some atheist apologists who espouse the views online adopt some nasty strategies, and unfortunately they involve ridicule, mockery, and slander.
Do tell me what the past 3 minutes was. I never opened with insults, period. The person I'm responding to always speaks first, save for a few rare occasions, including the last one to you, which I noted how irregular this was. At most, the ridicule aspects given off by me come at the conclusions of that specific segment when I've caught the person red-handed for lying, like you did with Dr. Olivera Petrovich. I don't care if you claim to have had interactions with her. You claimed she had published a journal with her research and that you had read it. You did that to me in person as well. You claimed that you had read the research and made your own decisions from it. In fact, why don't we just go back and play what you stated in public long after people have noted you are not telling the truth?
Take, for example, psychology. Olivera Petrovich is an academic and she studies the psychology of religion. and in the journal concerning the psychological studies in religion, and in the journal concerning the psychological studies in religion, she concludes that the natural psychological state of a human being is actually to believe in God. She says that atheism is a forced psychology on the human being. It's a forced psychology. Would you believe it? And they believe that we're the fundamentalists, right? And that's why they need the internet, they need aggressive speakers, and they need all these books just to try and infiltrate people's minds, because it's a forced psychology. That's the psychological evidence.
To see a further explanation of this, follow link 4 in the description down below. Fact is, there is no published journal, and there likely never will be. Just a published book set to come out next year. But even that is doubtful because it keeps being put back time after time. Now, for me to conclude from this that you are actively lying due to the fact that you have never seen said phantom journal or been able to produce it in the many times you were called out for the last 2 years, is not ridicule void of reason. You are giving this lecture to students, and that, as well as the rampant misrepresentation of social science, does anger me, and rightfully so. Now, earlier you mocked the usage of citations I give as an attempt by me to look smarter than I am. Fact is, I never claimed citations make me right, but they certainly allow people to see the basis of my claims, to follow down my sources, to track them down and see just how valid they are. Also, maybe it is you who needs to listen and learn. I mean, all of this could have been avoided if you had heeded the same method and cited the particular study you claim Dr. Oliveira Petrovich had written. All of this could have been saved.
Just go on YouTube or Facebook and search for atheist or atheism or God, and eventually you find a whole host of posts and videos that use vulgar language, disdain, sarcasm, derision and jeering.
So not at all like Dawah Man's claims that atheists are okay with drinking their father's semen, or even the threats of violence from Muslim viewers for merely having the audacity to question Islam. I've actually had that latter one. Now, do I come out and attack you for that? No. Then why the hell is this here in a video response supposedly for me?
One of the most sinister strategies, however, involves deliberate misrepresentations. By the way, I'm not saying that all atheists online adopt such strategies. In actual fact, some atheists have helped us a lot. They've helped us understand our own arguments, maybe. They have helped us understand where we've gone slightly wrong and where we need to improve. And I think we've done this. If you look at our history, concerning the work that we've done online and offline, you will see that, inshallah, God willing, we've been sincere enough to basically change our arguments and continuously improve.
I first brought to question your claims on Dr. Oliveira Petrovich as well as Justin L. Barrett in January of 2014 with the London Dawah movement. Others had done it beforehand, but this is when I came into the picture. You then used this at a lecture given before April 2014, as you then published a video response to my January video on the 27th of March after you'd run into me in person at the University of Surrey. I responded to that and contacted you again about this on the 2nd of April. You then used this argument again at this year's Young Muslims Conference. You are not open to change. The El Barrett one was open-close as I quoted him to you in person. The quote stating that you are simply lying about his research as some others did in claiming he stated belief in God was innate. It was a lie. He noted it. I told you. You had no excuse beyond that. If you continue to tell a lie when it's been proven to be false, it is a lie. That is what makes a lie, in fact. If you know something to be false and you continue to spread it, it is a lie. If you were willing to learn, that would not have happened. But it did, and it annoyed me, and I called you out as a liar for it. And then later on, I called you out as a liar again because you claimed to have looked into a field and have knowledge that Dr. Arif Ahmed did not, and then you showed your complete ignorance of that topic. So either you did know what the topic said and were lying, or you had lied about learning about said topic. It really just, it just gets to me, really.
But that has only happened if those atheists contacted us directly. They emailed us, or they sent us a comment, or whatever the case may be, and we've had this dialogue and interaction. That's the profound point.
11 times I have responded to you. Every time I have gone to your channel and told you. I have gone to your Facebook and asked you for your thoughts, and recently I've gone to Twitter and asked for answers directly. 11 times I have been ignored. 1, 2, hell even 3 times I could understand. I've missed comments as well. But 11 times plus direct messages being sent you as well, and you notice me and you follow me back on Twitter? I don't buy that at all, period. Now this is just insulting. I've gone out of my way to correct you, and you sit here in a response to me and claim that the problem with online atheists is that they don't comment most of the time. They don't contact you. They don't get in discussion. This is my discussion. Deal with it. This is the difference between us. I have done the intellectual thing, and I always attempt to notify you of my critiques. If you ignore them, then that is on you. Meanwhile, not once have you messaged me about either of your 2 responses. You hypocrite. I understand you're talking about the general YouTube atheist, but you stated you were using me as an example of these individuals. That's why I'm responding to this as if it were targeted towards me, as if it was personal. You're the one tarnishing me here, not the other way round.
Anyway, brothers and sisters and friends, let me just highlight what we want to highlight now. Now, there is a certain YouTube channel called Essence of Thought, which is run by someone called Peter. I believe his second name is Thurston, Peter Thurston. And I want to use this YouTube channel as an example to show that you shouldn't take online atheists seriously, because many of them, what they do is they misrepresent our arguments and actually slander and actually don't have the right type of ethic, especially when it involves dialogue and discussion. Now, as I said, Essence of Thought is run by Peter Thurston, and his YouTube channel is focused on dealing with theistic and religious arguments. So, let's move on. The main point here is I want to highlight that he's called me a liar here because I explained that the academic Dr. Arif Ahmed got his probabilities in a twist. He's got his probabilities all wrong by conflating epistemic probability with mathematical probability.
No, I called you out as a liar once again, as your epistemic probability was entirely reliant upon the evidence you brought forward, which was mathematical probability. Ergo, your claim to epistemic probability did not save you from said issues raised with your fallacious argument, and had you actually studied the philosophy you then spewed you had studied, you would have realized this. Therefore, I can only assume that you either lied about studying the field or simply lied about it in the first place, knowing you were wrong. It really does just escape me how you think you can get away with this. It really, really does.
Watch the video.
Okay, in a nutshell, what they're saying is this, is that you're saying that it's highly likely that there must be a designer for the universe based upon the constants and the laws in the universe. But you can't claim a likelihood because they're assuming it's a mathematical likelihood, a mathematical probability. Because they're saying for it to be a mathematical probability, you need a probability distribution. How can you have that? You don't have another universe. You don't have other universes that you observe, so you can't even claim anything concerning mathematical probability. Sure. Therefore, just be quiet. There is no design because you can't even claim that it's so likely. Because the minute you say likely, you're assuming a mathematical probability. You can't have a maths probability in this case because we don't have another universe or set of universes. So, this is how we address the issue. Dr. Arif Ahmed, not just him but many others who he's taken this argument from, has conflated mathematical probability
with epistemic probability. I know that's a big term.
Big words.
Yes.
Can you explain both of those?
So
first?
we know what mathematical probability is. Epistemic probability is basically what you would say. Let me give you an example. It is highly likely that the dinosaurs were extinct because of a meteorite. This is not mathematical probability. It's an epistemic, a knowledge, a rational probability, because it's based upon our background evidence. The evidence we have concerning the Earth, concerning the current science that we know, concerning other pieces of empirical evidence that we have at hand. Yeah, so we take that all on board, and then we basically make a conclusion.
Sure.
And based on that evidence, we're saying this evidence supports hypothesis H. What's hypothesis H in this instance? That the dinosaurs were extinct via meteorite, right? Now, the first key objection that Peter raises is this. How do you know the universe could not exist in any other way? Now, if you just take that statement itself, it's misplaced because it doesn't make sense.
Actually, no. You see, the first argument I made was the fact that I noticed you ultimately defined your God as not all-powerful through claiming specific things about him, i.e. that his creation of life was restricted by the universal constants. A true all-powerful deity would be able to create life with any set of constants. It does not matter. If those constants restrict his creations, then that means he is not all-powerful. His power is restricted by something greater than him. Otherwise, said constants just overrule him. As for how it's misplaced and doesn't make sense, I'm sure I'll find that interesting. However, I must urge anyone watching this to go and watch the original video, because you cut nearly everything out of my video. You take little tidbits and leave the substance of my argument. It really is quite infuriating.
But I know what he's trying to say. He's trying to say, how do you know there can't be another universe that permits life with different laws and different physical constants? That's what he's trying to imply.
But that's just what I stated. There was no hidden meaning or indirect implication. It wasn't poorly worded. It's what I stated in a simpler fashion. What this argument is like, the one that you were in fact making, is a person claiming that if the sperm cell which had made them had indeed not reached the mother's egg, no other sperm cell would have. I respond, how do you know that another sperm cell could not have fused with the egg and after a 9-month gestation period formed a different Tzortzis? We are talking in the theoretical, you see. When you state that life cannot exist in a universe with differing universal constants, you have created that hypothetical scenario, just like the one where the sperm which is you did not fuse with your mother's egg. Therefore, this is a response to your hypothetical. If I did not respond in your hypothetical, my argument would be invalid anyway. So what do you expect me to do? Just ignore what you say and go very straight-faced at it? Where's the fun in that? I gave you part of your scenario and then I questioned an aspect of it. That's what discussion is about.
So he's basically saying that there is no fine-tuning. You can't claim that there's fine-tuning for the universe because there could, maybe, possibly, be another universe with a different set of laws and constants that can still permit life. That's his point.
No, it was rather clear in that you had no basis to make the claim that life could only exist in a universe with these constants, these exact parameters, or that universes other than those like this could even exist. I mean, all universes could be like this, i.e. be life-enabling universes in some small pocket somewhere. You are the blind gambler who does not know the odds and yet declares divine intervention. Why don't you just play what I said?
Well, I don't want to get into a huge academic discussion on the issue because I don't think one is necessary. But I want to highlight a certain point, which is many atheists and theists, atheist scientists and theistic scientists, people who believe in God and people who don't believe in God, many of these scientists say that there is fine-tuning. So who are you going to believe? Peter or the academics or the scientists?
I just felt a great disturbance on the internet, as if millions of science-literate voices suddenly cried out in frustration and then were suddenly silenced by the sound of noses breaking upon the palms of their hands. Really, can you possibly give an argument from authority and an argument from popularity in any more direct fashion than that? Words escape me.
You make your own mind up. And let me just give you a list. The ones that believe that there is fine-tuning in the cosmos and the universe. These include Barrow, Carr, Carter, Davies, Dawkins, Deutsch, Ellis, Green, Guth, Harrison, Hawking, Lind, Page, Penrose, Polkinghorne, Rees, Sandage, don't know how to pronounce his name, I do apologize, Smolin, Susskind, Tegmark, Tipler, Vilenkin, Weinberg, Wheeler, and Wilczek. Now, obviously, they don't all follow through with our conclusions that fine-tuning implies design, but that's a different philosophical discussion, but they still believe in fine-tuning. Others, for example, say that there is a multiverse. Now, forget that for now, because we're going to address that in forthcoming shows, God willing, inshallah. But the main point here is there are academics, scientists, theists, they adopt a theistic position, atheists, they adopt an atheistic position, and they claim that there is fine-tuning of the laws and the physical constants. That's it. So there is fine-tuning. Now, Peter, on the other hand, would like to believe there is no fine-tuning. But you take your pick. Peter or all of these academics?
Okay, so you list a group of people and their apparent beliefs. So what? Yes, I do cite people in my videos when necessary, but I do not merely utter their names and leave it there. I display their own arguments. Note, their arguments, for it is their arguments that validate their beliefs, not their beliefs that validate your arguments. Consider this. What do we mean when we're discussing fine-tuning? Because one of the arguments in my response to you was quite simply a broader idea on fine-tuning, i.e. a range of constants which allow for life as opposed to this one set which allows for life, which you claim in complete ignorance of knowing the reality of that. I propose that there could be more constants which allow for life. You just assert, no, that can't be true, therefore God. That is ultimately what you are doing. I am not here asserting, well, this could be possible, therefore that disproves your God. No, but your argument is invalid. It's made invalid by this realization. Then there is the idea of necessity, an argument which currently holds as much weight as the argument from chance, due to us not knowing those before-mentioned odds, if they exist at all. And again, I do not know them, which is why I do not go, we do not know the odds, therefore something. I just state, we do not know the odds, so you shouldn't use this to argue that something exists. It just astounds me, this, attempts to get away from it. It really does just stun me. From this discussion, I came up with another analogy which hopefully will help get the idea across to you. Imagine a scenario where there exists this robot. It will not deteriorate or run out of power. Now imagine it has a dice. If it rolls a 6 4 million times in a row, it will gain the very thing it lacks, a consciousness. However, at that point, it will also lose recollection of its initial programming and will therefore not know how many times it had to roll the dice in order to get consciousness or how many times it rolled the dice overall. So it rolls for eternity. Eventually it comes alive. It has rolled its 4 millionth 6 in a row. But it does not know this. To the now conscious robot, it seems that it has always been aware, for it has no recollection of before. Now imagine a scenario with 3 robots, where they each take turns to roll the dice, and they all come online together if one succeeds, but in this one, we do not know what was needed in order to make them come online. One hypothesizes that the dice merely having to fall or even existing was enough for them to gain consciousness. This is the argument from necessity. Another hypothesizes that the odds of the universe existing, as vast as they were, happened either way. This is, chance. Lastly, the third claims that the dice is a lie and some supernatural force gave them all consciousness. the dice is analogous to natural causation, whereas, the last one just claims that it was the supernatural that caused it. There was no dice really involved. Even though they had the dice, it was not involved. The first two have a strong basis, as chance scenarios, as well as scenarios of necessity, exist and we can observe them. Both are natural. The latter does not have this, as no supernatural being has ever been observed. In this case, they can observe the dice, but they can't observe a supernatural being. But this is a question to be answered, not an assertion to be used as fraudulent evidence for the existence of said supernatural being. That was a major point in my video which you dismissed entirely. So yes, we are about halfway through now, and I'll be back to deal with the rest. Oh, believe me, I will.